live and we're going to warm up, and a lot of people will do the little countdown thing on StreamYard. It's like, not us. We're not going to do that.
We don't
We're
need no
not going
stinking countdowns.
We don't need no stinking countdown. We need a cold open in 3, 2, 1. April 1st is no longer April Fool's Day. It is RSP Day, a celebration of the rookie scouting portfolio, which is out right now. The author, Matt Waldman, of course, to talk about his creation every single year, Matt. And it's such a marathon for you. So I want to start with when the release of the rookie scouting portfolio today. Everyone check out mattwaldman.com. How does it feel?
It's great. I mean, this has been a very weird year, and we all know this. I mean, just from the outside, but as someone who's kind of working through it, it's been strange because this is both the shortest RSP I've written in a long time and the longest RSP I've written in a long time, in the sense that it's 1,058 pages. And usually I say, oh yeah, don't worry about that because it's really only 300 pages and the rest is supporting documents. This year, 800 of those 1,000 pages are actually content because of the way that I changed the RSP. But it's also easier to read because I've reformatted how I do it. So you won't have to read through narratives. You can actually go through sections. But I revamped so much on the front end that the back end was easier to write. And so March is usually very tough. And this year I've been able to sleep. I've been able to actually function. It was, instead of it being like a 20-hour day type of thing every day, it was more like a 16-hour type of deal, and I could actually get a full night's sleep. And so that's great. I was kind of nervous to see what people think of the new format. So far, it seems to be really positive. And it's just been such a great class. That's the weird thing, is when you analyze this class, it's like there's so many good wide receivers in this class. And I'm just like, yeah, there's our friend of the show right here, man. Love this guy. But this wide receiver class, I feel like everyone's going to either be wrong or right about the wide receivers this year. Okay. I mean, I spent so much time working on the structure of how I evaluate. When you go look at the checklists, it's literally like 100 points long, over 100 points that I look at for wide receivers. And I watched so many games of every player this year. And I got to, I had a lot more access to coaches' film, but I look at the wide receiver class and there's guys that nobody even talks about that I think that could wind up being as good, that I've got rated past the 25th mark of the rankings, who I'm like at 30, 35 going, at the end of your draft, you better get him, like Jacob Harris out of UCF, or, is a good example, or Jalen Camp, who I have rated pretty highly, but 18th isn't exactly what you would call high, but for this class, it might as well be 8. I mean, It's insane how good this class is. So that's the craziness of all of this and then we haven't even gotten to the other positions where there's star players at every skill position. So I'm chomping at the bit to be able to talk about these rookies.
Yeah, I'm chomping at the bit to talk with you all the time, of course, leading you up to the NFL draft. And we're going to get to running backs, wide receiver talk today. I do want to begin with a little quarterback talk. Not that this day is about the rookie scouting portfolio, but I do want to bring up the, I don't know, controversy, if you will, with Dan Orlovsky's comments about Justin Fields. Like, oh, I heard that he, his work ethic is a problem. I heard that all these, so now Orlovsky's backtracked and I won't make it personal, which is rare for me, but I really could give a crap about what Dan Orlovsky says or doesn't say. But as I told my co-host Nick Ferguson about the story, and he goes, oh yeah, it's because he's paying the black tax. And I said, describe that to me. He's like, this is what the black athlete has to go through. And obviously Nick is African-American. And he's like, this is one BS. You heard JT O'Sullivan talk about it. That clip was floating around today. He's like, this is straight a dog whistle for racism. Like, it's a very hot button issue. I know just from the people that I've talked to, that is the opposite. In fact, I've been told like he's the anti Dwayne Haskins, right? Because everyone looks at Ohio State and says, "Oh, well, Cardale Jones didn't do anything, and Haskins didn't do anything, and whoever."
Or the anti Paxton Lynch.
Right. Very much so. So it's actually quite the opposite. And this is where I think Orlovsky, who, maybe he's the nicest guy ever. I don't know. I don't know him. I've never talked to him. And again, I don't really care about his opinion. Because, whatever. I'm not watching ESPN about that. But I think where he messed up is he didn't investigate this. It's like you hear something and just run with it. So you can wear a hooded sweatshirt with a suit jacket on it and get up there in front of the screen and talk about this kind of stuff. It's like, dude, vet these things. You hear a lot of things, mostly from agents. Don't listen to agents. Talk to coaches. And then, surprise, Orlovsky talked to coaches, and they're like, no, Justin Fields is really smart, really dedicated, really hard worker, really wants to be great. But the damage you can do to a young man's draft stock, this is what pisses me off about this whole thing, Matt. So before, and again, I want today to be a celebration, but having you on, having this discussion, I think it's very important to set the record straight in what you've heard, what you've seen, what you know about Fields and these, reported speculative issues.
Well, I think it's natural that we have this conversation because years ago we had one with Teddy Bridgewater that was like that was like a firestorm for
Right.
Hey, Christopher, that was a firestorm here, and now we're looking at it, and I think it's become a little more normalized for people to recognize this, and that's probably part of the deal is that Dan Orlovsky probably was just an unwitting pawn, unintentional. It was probably unintentional on his part. And I think that's a common part of society where there are people who don't understand the dynamics of what goes on. And as a result of not the same thing, exactly. And Teddy and, many others.
List goes on and on.
List goes on. So it's like, it happened to Lamar, so you look at these situations, and if you don't understand the dynamics of it, you're likely to unwittingly repeat those dynamics when you're in a position for that to happen. And he's in a position where he gets to be able to be in front of a large stage. And I think that someone probably called him out on it afterwards and explained to him in the same way that maybe people explain some things to Drew Brees at the beginning of the summer, for him to go, oh, I get it. I didn't understand, and it can unwittingly hurt people. And yeah, what he essentially did, whether he meant to or not, and I don't think he meant to, is basically part of character assassination. And that's, you basically cost a young man, or maybe your rumors could potentially cost a young man millions of dollars based on how far he might slip.
Right.
If, and people might go, well, that's silly. Doesn't the NFL do their own scouting? Why are they going to listen to some guy who ran out of the back of the end zone, who was a third string quarterback? And I'm not saying that like being mean to Dan, more the fact that that's what people say when they're always angry with Dan. That's the thing that they will say. Right. So the answer is that owners do, because as whether we like it or not, the crazy thing is that owners and GMs listen to sports talk all the time and react to that more than they let on. They act like they're behind this big wall and they're feeding you this little bits of information know better than anybody. Meanwhile, they're freaking out over what the stories are being written about them and what's being said and what other rumors are going on, and they're wondering if they should even trust their own people within the building about what they've scouted, because somebody must have heard this. Or the perception is the issue. It's like, it's one of those things where, he's in the steam room with the head of the car dealership locally, and they're talking, and the car dealer's basically giving it to him in terms of like all the things that are, wrong with his team and all the perception issues and all the things that they should be worried about in the community, when it comes to merchandise and season tickets and you don't want to draft this kid because, It may not even be the reasons that they gave, but it might all be part of that. The central theme might still be
for different reasons, obviously.
Yeah.
But I remember with Justin Herbert when there was the buzz like, oh, he's weird. Oh, he keeps to himself. Oh, he just talks to his brothers. Like he just talks to his family. And it's like, what? And again, it takes more vetting. You can't just hear you and I hear so much and we don't run with it without vetting or, just maybe it's something not to run with or whatever. But like you have to have this filter, and it's like Orlovsky learned this lesson, hopefully learned this lesson. Like, dude, don't just pop off at the mouth. And again, everybody watched JT O'Sullivan, who I adore and appreciate, and he waxed Chris Sims and JT and Dan Orlovsky up one side and down the other. So,
and to be honest with you, I'm glad he did, because I think it took someone with his background, a peer, and they don't see anybody in the media as a peer. Even though I would say that they're media in training in terms of their understanding of what should be going on, but because they came from being quarterbacks in the NFL, they think they have no peer. So a guy like JT O'Sullivan can basically say, no, listen, that was dumb. You should know better, just as a quarterback who was going through this process. You're basically like, you're basically now the hall monitor, and you're acting like it now in an over officious way. And you could even be cynical and say, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, but I will float out there kind of at the same time that where he works, he gets to play both sides of the issue. He gets to say, I floated this out there, got lots of clicks,
that's just what I heard.
Everybody's happy, and now I can dispel it. And now he gets to play both sides of the coin, and people don't think about that. Well, who does that benefit? It benefits Dan Orlovsky,
right?
And so if you're that cynical about him, that's the reason why he deserves maybe to be criticized. But at the same time, even if you're not, if it's unintentional, then he still deserves to be criticized, because in this day and age, we have to become more aware, because we've seen what happens when we're not aware of things that we can help control and create better situations that don't wind up boiling over.
Just be better, be smarter about the whole situation. And if you have a microphone, I don't care if you have 5 followers or if you're on ESPN, be better, be smarter. And your hot take, it's not that hot. Running backs are hot. There's a transition for you.
Yeah.
Who's the best back in this class, Matt? Because I think you and I may agree on who it is. Mine's from North Carolina, and it's not Michael Carter. Michael Carter was not good in pass pro. Michael Carter was not good in pass pro at the Senior Bowl. So let's talk about this, and let's go through the top running backs to you, because it seems like everyone has a different opinion. And Williams, obviously Javonte Williams, who I'm talking about, he didn't blow anybody away. He shouldn't have. Right? When there's these pro day performances, what was he, like a 4.5, 5.40?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, he's David Montgomery. That's who he is. He's natural. He's instinctive. He's a plunger. He's not going to run away from you. But he has very natural movements, great vision. From my opinion, I like that type of back. Now, Etienne and Harris and all these other backs we can talk about. Let's jump into this thing 2 feet, because again, for the people that missed last week's show, you and I didn't get our Senior Bowl chat. You know what I mean? When we're driving from Atlanta to Mobile and we got 6 hours to catch up. So basically we had to do that on the air for everybody right now.
Yeah. And it's funny, because certainly I like Javonte Williams a lot, and he is my number 3 running back on my board. And it's, I would say that he is fairly well ahead of Etienne. He's a little bit ahead of Carter. But I look at him, and, you look at that 20 shuttle, 4.09, that's a pretty nice 20 shuttle. That shows you a lot of short area quickness in terms of that immediate acceleration. Acceleration is way more important than the 4.5, 5.40.
Yes.
And that 6.97 3-cone drill also is quick. And he is a powerful back, just like you said with Montgomery. You can lower the pads and you can win through contact. So I'm a fan. He can run each. He can run each type of scheme that you want to throw at him that the NFL likes to use. He catches the ball well, and
knowing my preference for running backs, you probably aren't surprised that Williams was top my list.
Not remotely surprised. And I think it's a great choice. I think it's a great choice because I think he's the safest back in this class in terms of you're going to get what you expect from him. It may not be the highest of the highs. It's not going to be the lowest of the lows, but he's going to be at least a high-end contributor for a team with maybe a scat back helping out, or he'll be the lead back. So there's that. I'm glad your mind's blown. That's what I like doing.
That's what the RSP is all about.
It is, man. Totally surprising people every year. But I'm going to surprise you more. My favorite back, I told this on the Ross Tucker show a while back, and they were shocked. Trey Sermon, Oklahoma, Ohio State. He's my number one back, and he's been for a while. And the reason being is that Sermon has the size you're looking for, 6 feet 215 for sure. Now, people look at the speed and say he ran a 4.57, 4.58. That's not all that fast. But when you look at the rest of the numbers too, which these are this is all icing that I'm talking about right now. But
right.
If you put it all together and look at like the RAS score, which a lot of people like to do analytically, which is kind of like looking at the full dimensional picture of the guy's athletic ability, Trey Sermon scored a 9 out of 10 in terms of how people look at that score, which is very darn high. And the thing about Sermon that I love is his decision making. This guy makes it look easy. He's running 2 different systems. He's someone that has both the really strong cuts, the ability to make people miss. Like he can work the edge and make safeties and cornerbacks miss with his footwork. He can also avoid a lot of hits at the line of scrimmage in terms of penetration. He has what I call what's called curvilinear movement. You see Dalvin Cook have it, where you can bend around corners like a straight cycle. It's things that Cecil liked to do in his youth. You can, you get to do that, but he also has the hard cuts. He has really strong connection between his eyes and feet to be able to set up creases. He's masterful at that. I think he has the best vision in this class. And on top of that, and the Sermon, listen, the thing with Sermon too is that when I did the tracking this year of avoiding contact and actually after contact skills, he graded out as high as anyone, sometimes higher than Williams, who was pretty darn high up there. And one of the things that was different about Sermon than every other back is that most every other back encountered some sort of contact in my sample against defensive tackles. And it was like, okay, were they able to pull through a wrap or reach or a hit? And the hit's the hardest thing to work through, especially against the defensive lineman. Well, if you're not getting hit by a defensive lineman, that pretty much tells you that the guy sees it coming and is able to get away from it, or the blocking's really good. But there's lots of guys who have great blocking who had to deal with that. Trey Sermon was the only back in my sample of 50 backs who did not have to deal with getting hit by a defensive tackle. And it's a reflection, from my opinion, of what he's able to do as a runner. I mean, very smart runner, quicker than you'd expect. He certainly can get into the secondary. He's a better receiver than people realize. And the workouts at Ohio State, every year we hear this: Leonard Fournette, Melvin Gordon. Oh, we didn't have much production, quality over quantity when it comes to receptions. And then, and he's a good pass blocker too. So I think this guy's like a slower Todd Gurley in the sense of like smart and physical and can do a lot of different things for your offense. And I'm just praying the Steelers aren't smart enough to get him. But I have a feeling they are. And I think he's the best back in this draft class. And I do agree with the people asking, is he the best value? He's going to be, because everybody I know has got him 7th, 8th. He might be creeping up into the top 5 now because of his pro day.
Right.
But he's not remotely mentioned in those conversations. And I mean, I can be wrong. I've been wrong with plenty of guys before, but when it comes to running backs, I usually do a pretty good job with it. And I'd say that Sermon is a guy that just stood out for the past 2 years for me, even though the injuries were there.
I like what Gregory says here, how you can discuss running styles for 15 minutes, not repeat description. It reminds me, there's a draft guide. They don't make it anymore, but it was like 10 years ago. There was this draft guide, and all they did was cut and paste. Because, if a guy had a certain trait, it was just the same sentences. It was god awful. It's more nuanced than that. And it's more nuanced than I see CJ Spiller and Travis Etienne. I'm not as crazy as other people are. Obviously, that speed makes everything, go. And maybe it's the helmet. Maybe I'm stuck on that, Matt. But I'm seemingly disagreeing because I don't really look at anything else. I listen to you. Obviously, I read the RSP, but it's not like I'm ingesting draft Twitter and all that. My opinions on social networking anyway. But now that I've jumped in, like, hey, what's everybody saying? It's like, oh, really? They're saying that. Okay. I know speed's going to get a lot of attention with Travis, but let's tell the truth about the kid.
Yeah, and I like how you let in with it because I do see CJ Spiller as well. I see Marlon Mack early in Marlon Mack's career. I think, and that means that the upside for me is like a Reggie Bush type of player for him if he gets it together. There are a lot of people who were wondering last year, why did he stay? Why did he not come out? And I kept thinking every time they said that, I go, I can tell you a lot of reasons why he stayed. And it was a good thing for him that he did because he wasn't patient. He took things to the corner store, bounced it outside all the time. He was someone that really didn't run zone plays very well. He was a great candidate for a gap scheme where you could just hit it up in there hard, and he has that speed. He's a tough guy. I like that for his size, that he can drop the pads and work through contact. He's willing as a pass protector. Obviously, he's got the long speed and the ability to catch the football. This year, he got better with zone schemes. He didn't automatically bounce things. He showed some ability to really hit the crease decisively on certain zone plays and other inside type of plays where he displayed a little more nuance to his game. But I'm worried that of all the backs in my top 5 to 6, he's the one that I fear the most having the biggest adjustment period early on, where if you put him in outside zone, because you can see it coming. It's like Tevin Coleman. They're like,
yep,
yeah, speed.
You're going to be perfect.
Zone. Yeah.
Devontae Booker. Like, this is why they got me. I'm going to be perfect for this.
Yeah. Devontae Booker. And now he's going to be like, I've got to make a big play. And then just abandon all the principles of that he had developed because he's trying to press. And I think that if he does that, you might see him backslide for a year. But I am confident that he'll get better and he'll be a capable back, maybe even a very good back, meaning top 15 for fantasy, in the right offense and the right system. But I think he's the one that has the biggest bust factor in terms of first year or two in the league.
Okay, what about Najee Harris, who was at the Senior Bowl, and we'll get to Khalil Herbert. The skies have parted, and he's one of my favorite running backs. Oh, I should just put him number 1 because I can't shut up about the kid. But anyway, let's talk about Harris first because he didn't participate in the Senior Bowl when he was there, and he's huge compared to Michael Carter, Chris Evans, or Khalil Herbert, who are at the Senior Bowl participating. Some people say Matt Forte. By the way, James Palmer, dear friend of the show, he said that Harris told him he was mad that people learned he drove 9 hours because his flight was canceled. He's like, I don't want people to know my business. And James told him, was like, welcome to the NFL, buddy. Like, you're going to know, and, probably talk to your agent and let him know. And I don't know why he would be offended because he went to support his teammates at Alabama's Pro Day. Either way, getting off track, let's talk about Harris and why, people are saying Matt Forte. Some people are saying Josh Jacobs. Again, seems like opinions are all over the place.
Yeah, I've got basically, how you look in the mirror and you see yourself one way, but the rest of the world, or when you take a picture, you see how the rest of the world sees you,
Right.
I think Najee Harris is how Seattle fans look at Chris Carson if they were Chris Carson in the mirror, or at least at one time. I think Najee Harris is a better version of Chris Carson. And I like Chris Carson. I think he's a very good player.
Him at OK State.
But Najee Harris is someone who, we know he's big, he's physical. He might have the best contested catch skill of the running backs in this class. I mean, last year, it was 2 years ago, watch him run a bullet route against Patrick Queen, Ravens Patrick Queen, and go up and win a back shoulder play against LSU that was just looked like anything that a good wide receiver prospect would have done. And it's not the only time he's done it. I've watched him this year against Texas A&M do the same thing. And he's good in the middle of the field as a route runner in terms of zone routes, man-to-man against linebackers. I think the potential is there for him to be a pass blocker, but that's why he's not my number one guy. Probably is that one thing is that as a pass protector, he drops his head. He gets off balance. Defenders, he telegraphs what he's doing there. On top of that, in short yardage situations, as much as a banger he can be, as sweet a feet as that he has to be able to make people miss, I've literally seen this guy retreat from short yardage plays, trying to like find a way to get away from what's going on, like literally back up because the hole stopped and he's going to try and get more. He's got to stop that. He has lots of little issues that are not a big deal, but it's the difference between him being my first and second back on the board. And he's a little rough around the edges in those areas, but I like him a lot. I love the compliment they're paying him to say he's Matt Forte. I don't know if he's as quick and as fast as that, even though we see moments like that. Mm-hmm. I think he's quicker than fast. And certainly he knows how to be powerful. He's got great feet, but he doesn't have the sudden elusiveness and great type of cuts that Matt Forte had, right. But that's why I look at more kind of a Carson, like big, and you're like, wow, he's pretty agile and explosive for his size, and he'll bowl your behind over, and that's what, so yeah, Matt
Diego Forte brings it up about Forte fooling people with how easy he made his game look. I'll go back even further. Willis McGahee.
Yeah.
Because people would watch McGahee and be like, he's not running hard, and he's just running past everybody.
Yeah.
Like there's some backs that are so smooth with what they do, and you're like, why is he not putting forth effort? And he's like dominating people.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And so Harris is great. We can sit here and argue what the comp is, but the bottom line is you want him as one of your three best backs on the board in most cases.
Okay, Khalil Herbert. Again, we didn't get a share. If we were in a car, if we were in your Prius driving to Mobile, I would have talked about Khalil Herbert. Out of the 6 hours, I would have spent at least 2 hours talking about Herbert and how excited I was to watch him. And he did not disappoint. And that's the thing. Like, when you go to these games and we have a list of guys like, I want to watch this guy, I want to watch this guy. And then for me, like last year, Michael Pittman. And we watched Michael Pittman. We're like he's letting people wrestle the ball away from him. Like, dude, come on, you're Michael Pittman. And so he let me down last year. Fine, rookie season, whatever. But this year with Herbert, I was like, I want to see him. And I know running backs are different because there's no live tackling and all that. But every day, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, consistent, best in pass protection. He did let a couple guys get around him, but form is there, want to is there in backs on backers drills. Obviously instinctive and smooth and natural with what he does. Let's talk about this guy and how much of a mid-round sleeper he could be.
Yeah, he's my sixth back on the board. And I have him listed pretty much. It could have been easily, he could have overtaken Etienne on my board. And I liked Herbert for a couple of years. I saw him at Kansas a couple of years ago when I was on Ross Tucker's show, and I used to do that weekly. He would say, is there anybody like we should watch out for coming up to begin the season? And the two backs that I mentioned that he was like, one was like, I forgot about Trey Sermon, was like that because he had moved to Ohio State.
Right.
And the other one was Herbert. I mentioned Herbert, and he was like, yeah, he's moving to West Virginia. To Virginia Tech. And I kept thinking, I know everyone's talking about Puka Williams and how exciting he is, but all I could think of every time I watched Khalil Herbert was like, the wrong guy's leaving the Kansas program in terms of like if you want the Kansas Jayhawks to be competitive. Right. Because this guy reminds me more of Dalvin Cook than any back I've seen in a while, or since Dalvin Cook came out. They have a very similar style. though I think Herbert has better cutting ability because Dalvin Cook doesn't cut. He just bends around stuff or uses his feet in a way to where he's idling in place and moves his body where his feet are moving, but he can do it so quickly that it works for him. Khalil Herbert can make hard cuts, but he can also just bend around the middle for you to where he gets into the second level and just crosses the face of a safety or linebacker and has the burst and speed to do it, just like Dalvin Cook does. And their numbers are very similar. Their height, weight are very similar. Their style of play is similar. They're both more rugged than you would expect them to be. Mm-hmm. So I'm a big fan of what Khalil Herbert does, and it's going to be interesting to see where he winds up, because he could wind up on a team where it's like he's a mid-round guy and the Vikings go, wow, Spider-Man, looking at each other type of meme situation where they go, let's draft him as a replacement or like a reserve, and he doesn't see the field and we're disappointed because he's getting cleanup duty after Dalvin Cook. Or he could wind up on a team where they have an aging starter or a struggling young guy, and say Philadelphia, where Miles Sanders, everybody's like, he's turned the corner, he's great, and he has done better, that's for sure. But what if he backslides? Or what if Saquon Barkley doesn't?
I'm trying to talk George Payton into drafting him just by how much I talk about him on the Denver airwaves, because Melvin Gordon stinks. All right. And the way that Pat Shurmur uses him or doesn't, I still don't think Gordon's ever been used the right way. So maybe he doesn't stink, but whatever. Like, they got rid of Phillip Lindsay. Royce Freeman has no confidence. He went Ryan Moats on us, and Khalil Herbert would be perfect.
Yeah, he'd be a great blend
and great for what Shurmur wants him to do.
Yeah, he'd be the blend of Melvin Gordon and Lindsay in terms of styles of backs. So certainly like how that would play out. So that's a good fit for him. Houston probably needs a running back, to be honest with you, for the future. And I would think that he wouldn't be a bad one from that end either.
Yeah, wouldn't be a bad one there at all. As and again, we're going to spend a lot of time with these prospects. I'm trying to get to some favorites here as me and Matt Waldman celebrate the rookie scouting portfolio released today. Check out mattwaldman.com. Pick up your copy. It is the guide for you. Fantasy football player, NFL draft player, just want to know more about these college prospects. That's exactly what the rookie scouting portfolio is there for you, mattwaldman.com. A lot of people at the Senior Bowl kept going on and on about Michael Carter. And you see the burst, you see the movement. He can't pass protect. It was ugly. And maybe that'll change, whatever. Let me know what you saw on film, because, everyone likes to get a little too cute this time of year. Everyone except you, Matt, where they're, they like this guy and I like this guy. But you know what? I like Michael Carter. Yeah, he's all right, but he's a 2-down player if he can't protect.
That's true. And, when I watched him in pass pro, the thing that I liked that I saw was that he understood twists and looping pressure, and he could diagnose that and at least get in a square position to pick that up. So the diagnostic end of it is promising, but if you don't have the execution, then it doesn't matter what you see. So, he's obviously he'll have to improve in that area. But what I see basically Clyde Edwards-Helaire looking, a better version of Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but looking for a team that would give him what Clyde Edwards-Helaire was in position to be able to have last year. And what I say that is that Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Michael Carter are both very strong receivers. They're built low to the ground. They have that contact balance to a degree where, though I would say Clyde Edwards-Helaire is a bully who gets yards in the second and third level, but not much at the first, unless it's just defenders, slapping him, as opposed to holding on or hitting. I think Carter has a little bit more power to his game. I like the vision that he shows. Certainly, he's just as quick. He's faster. He definitely has the long speed. So he's not just a guy that's going to give you, 20 to 30 yard gains. He's going to occasionally break the long one for you. You'll get those handful of carries that you're like, get really excited about and can flip the field for you. So to me, the question though is a team, the right team, going to get him? Because if he winds up on a team as kind of a scat back, then he's essentially Giovanni Bernard without the pass protection skills. And Bernard could pass protect.
Speaking of North Carolina.
Yeah, exactly. He's very similar in that build and regard. If he winds up on a team that is like maybe New England and they decide they're going to, they want a successor to James White, but a little bit more, he could be okay there, especially if they feel like that teams sometimes do with a quarterback like Cam Newton. They're like, he'll just take getting hit, whatever.
Right.
I know they don't say that and they don't consciously think that, but when you watch him get pummeled, you wonder if that's what's kind of going on in the back of their mind sometimes. But he's that type of player that he's kind of volatile for fantasy value right now until we know where he lands. The talent's there. You can see where it can be all put together, but you also can see where it's like, oh, I liked him a lot, but his landing spot really screwed him.
Ramondre Stevenson's a fullback. And again, if I go back to like Senior Bowl talk, right? Everyone, Carter, and then they see Ramondre Stevenson, like, look at that guy. And I'm like, whew. And I like big backs, and I cannot lie, Matt, but just watch. And maybe I'm putting too much weight in the Senior Bowl. Shocker, I've done that before. But let's discuss him because it seems like, again, opinions are split. For me, I see a guy who does not move fast enough to make those decisions. Does he grind? Does he like to lower his pads? Yes, all those sorts of things. But it's like he's running in mud. And he was okay in pass protection. So let's discuss this and what you think of him. I got to pick your brain about Khalil Hill, right? Because he's kind of a mystery based on how things didn't go his final year for the Bulldogs. Chuba Hubbard is a favorite as well. We have Chuba, Apuka, and a Funk, right?
Yep.
So we got a lot of great names. Jake Funk from Maryland, who won't get drafted, but still, like, so let's break down a few of these other. Chuba wasn't at the Senior Bowl, but let's break down Khalil Hill, Ramondre Stevenson, and get to some Chuba Hubbard love before we're out of here today.
Okay, so Ramondre Stevenson. If I'm wrong, the way you described him is perfect. So, that's the bottom end for sure. I really like Ramondre Stevenson.
Okay.
I think I snuck in and found your Mikael LaShore poster and stole it last time I was over your house. You might want to go check and see, in that closet where you keep that thing hidden, where because I liked his footwork on film. From what I saw on film, I thought he was much quicker. Watching him against Florida, watching him against some higher end teams, he was able to take the corner on defensive backs with good footwork, initial quickness. And this is a guy that he's not just a Michael Bush type of player who thinks, who's 230, 40 pounds and thinks he's a 195 pound scat back. Right. He can do some of that. But when it's time to drop the pads and bowl through someone, he has that power. But he has great hip flexibility, very efficient moves with his feet. And then when you look at his pass pro, I actually think his pass pro is really good. And from what I've seen thus far, like in games, he's one of the better pass protectors I've seen in more promising ones. And he has soft hands and great tracking in terms of catching the football. The interesting thing, the reason that I say if I'm wrong, he'll be where you're at, is that this is a guy that came in at 250 pounds and rushed for 2,000 yards as a JUCO. And he lost weight while he was playing and got down to 230. And while he didn't run with the speed that you're looking for with him when he lost that weight, I think what you're seeing is a guy during COVID-19 is reshaping his body. And the fact that he's reshaping his body right now tells me that it might take a little bit more time, but he may still be only like halfway through the renovation stage. And when he gets all the way through it, he might actually turn out quicker and more sudden. And right. I thought he was quick and sudden enough as it is to be a move the chains, 10 to 15 yard gains type of back when it's a good hole. And So
Well, and we need to note how those body changes can affect things. We had great debates about Le'Veon Bell
yeah,
at Michigan State. You were right, I was wrong, and Le'Veon Bell changed his body. Like the
yeah.
Le'Veon Bell from Michigan State that I saw was flat-footed, tried to get too cute with the jump cuts, and then when he trimmed his body down, he became different. So it'll be interesting to see what you're saying about Stevenson, how that shapes up as well, because he is natural. And in pass protection drills, at least again, Senior Bowl takes, like he was very solid and willing, and all form was good, all those sorts of things. So I like when we run into these type of things.
And the fact that he's a worker, that he worked himself into the shape he wanted to be in while he was playing, tells me this kid's a worker and has an idea of where he wants to go. So I'm excited about him. Kylan Hill, I'm a big Kylan Hill fan.
He's got it all, man. He's got it all. What the hell was the staff thinking there?
Yeah, well, he can catch. He's such a great receiver, and he runs good routes. So I think they thought, Mike Leach, it's a natural fit. But then when you don't have an offensive line and you have KJ Costello, who's didn't adjust well to all of that, Kylan Hill was basically Kylan Hill's the guy that you want in the backfield taking runs between the tackles as often as you put him out in space. And with Washington State South, basically that's what it was. He was James Williams, basically going out for little outlet routes, and that's not his gig. Like he can do that, but you're basically wasting like the best part of his game. He is a contact runner. He has good moves to create and get away from certain types of angles. He has better speed than you would realize. And that 4.51, I think, tells you that it's not a great time, but he's not, it doesn't
take a long time to get to that time, at least from watching him and when talking to people. Like, again, he doesn't get along with Mike Leach. Well, Mike Leach is kind of an ass, so whatever. Apologies, he's the greatest guy ever. But like, he's had some troubles in the past of players not getting along with him. That stuff doesn't bother me. It bothers me when they try to square peg round hole this guy, because again, he's got it all. Yeah. He's got it. If he's the best back in this class, when all is said and done, I won't be surprised.
Yeah, I honestly, that's funny. I wouldn't be either, even though he doesn't have the blow you away athletic ability. The way he integrates his game is so strong.
Doesn't waste motion.
No, he's a guy, when you watch him run, you're like, that's an NFL runner. So, and the question's going to be, does he get the opportunity due to draft capital now because of him not having the production to be able to prove that early on? Or does it turn out that we look at him like Alex Collins and say Alex Collins was an NFL runner? You could see that when he played, but he had other issues, and that's why that went away. So Chuba
is what Chad Ryder is telling me. So Chuba. Thank you, Chad.
In a Chuba with the San Francisco 49ers would be a perfect fit. I think he'd be the blend. He'd be a Raheem Mostert in training, because he has the speed. He's got the size. He's someone that, if he can learn to drop the pads a little better, which is a hard thing to teach running backs at this stage. But I'm a little worried because he's a guy that he can get a good 5 to 7 yards downhill start, drop his pads, and just wind up at a standstill with a safety. That makes me a little nervous. That's kind of the only back I've seen that really survives that kind of thing. In the years that I've tracked backs was Marlon Mack. But in terms of being a guy who actually started in the league, who couldn't do. Now, Hubbard it's not every time for Hubbard. It's not like Darren McFadden, where McFadden would go 10 yards downhill and basically get knocked backwards by a safety because he didn't know how to lower his pads. But Hubbard has moments like that. Love his suddenness. I think he's gotten a little more patient, a little better with understanding how to run the ball between the tackles with the exposures he's had. Because there's a lot of lead draw, a lot of toss, a lot of outside runs in his game. So he's going to have an adjustment period. But I think he's going to be a good back if he can hold on to the ball. We've seen a lot of guys with ball security issues get better at it, though. Sony Michel, Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders had awful ball security. We didn't really hear much of an issue with that as his rookie year or last year. So these guys are kind of getting better at that. It's not becoming as big of a problem. as it's always been assigned to be as in the past. So I like him, don't love him. Like if you looked at my number ranking, you'd say he hates Chuba Hubbard.
He hates Chuba Hubbard.
But
he hates these cans.
Exactly. But if you look at the score, Hubbard for me is a guy that I gave him the equivalent of a grade of a contributor right now, which gives him the potential to become a rotational starter. I don't think he's ever going to be an every down back in an offense, but I think he can be a lead back into the offense. And that's what the 49ers do. A lot of teams do that. And that makes them top 15, top 20 fantasy plays. And I think he's that type of guy, ranked 15th to 25th, during the peak of his career every year in your fantasy league. That's what I think you can expect out of him.
Has the ask for running backs changed the way that you grade running backs? Because the position is different. Not only is it specialized, but backs themselves are just asked to do so many different things than they used to.
Yeah, I think it's changed in a way where I've created different ways of grading players now. So I have like my big board, and then I have a third down back board, which kind of emphasizes or de-emphasizes running between the tackles. It de-emphasizes power and contact balance, and it emphasizes speed, quickness, pass catching, pass blocking, and movement, movement skills to be able to make people miss and create space. And so there are guys who end up higher on my third down back board. I call it a third down back board, but really you could call it the Alvin Kamara board, if you wanted to, and say that's the Alvin Kamara role, though Kamara has shown to be, I don't know. Alvin Kamara to me is like, he might as well be, if I could be a running back and this was like Kill Bill, I'd travel up that mountain in the Mexican countryside or the South American countryside and be trying to learn from the master, because that dude and his balance and footwork is unbelievable.
It is the Audible live here. Matt Waldman, rookie scouting portfolio author. Make sure to check out mattwaldman.com. Get your copy. And then here's what I like to do, Matt. I like to sit on the deck, right? I like to watch the deer on the side of the mountain. And I just like to read the RSP, right? Flip it over in the tablet and just sit there and chill out and maybe have some tunes on and just pour over your work. It's an amazing feat every year, right? And just think of where it started, and what's that old meme, like how it started, how it's going, like how it started, how it's going with Matt Waldman, and how the rookie scouting portfolio continues to be the premier draft guide for fantasy football players, for people that want to know more about these skill position players and just want to see the math. I think that's the most important thing, because now there's a lot of people with clickers on YouTube, right? There's a lot of people breaking down film and filling your head full of nonsense, right? Just saying, oh, this is what's happening, without actually explaining why this is what's happening. And the fact that you show your math, you show your work, and you go over those things, not only with your podcast and your YouTube channel, but in the rookie scouting portfolio specifically, I think it's very special treat for football fans every year, man.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And, I've appreciated the support all these years as well. It's just fantastic to be able to have, folks like you and Bloom and Gene in my corner, and being able to do this, that's very special in itself. And just the readers that I have great readers. I mean, I had, for instance, a good example for those of you who bought the RSP, say back in December when I did a price special. My sales software decided that it wanted to be ornery and take your money and count that you paid for it, but not give you access to the RSP. So today I've had to deal with December customers, and most of my readers, when your readers are like, I know you've been busy, so if it takes a couple days, I'm sorry. And they're just nice when you're, right. And I manage customer service centers. So right. I know, I've had people tell me they hope I get cancer and die. So, that kind of thing, or say all those types of things because they're angry about something. So to be able to have readers who are generally apologetic for bothering me when in fact they're trying to get something they paid for and I want to help them, it makes life so much easier, and it just tells me that it's an indication that they like the product, they like where it's how it's evolving, and that they appreciate the effort that goes into trying to make it better every year. And I'll say this with it to close out, is that this year, if you've bought the RSP in previous years and you're about to buy it now, you'll notice that the content's a little drier. There's not as much of me being like the class goof off like I am on this show oftentimes. And there's some of that in there still, but all that stuff that was on my wall that Cecil would ask about for the past year all went into basically the checklists that I put together to revamp some things that I've been wanting to do for a couple of years. And as a result of that, I spent a lot of time really trying to do things differently ahead of time so that I could get some sleep, so that I can make this sustainable long term and do this for 5, 10, 15 years, and not just like hopefully year to year I'm still like kicking, at the end of it. So as a result, all that concentration of doing that made the product a little drier in terms of like the stories and the personality. Like Gene would say, the personality and the isms of me weren't as much in it as they were in the past, but they'll be in it again as time goes on. I find that when I make larger scale changes, it gets a little bit more direct about just the scouting and sticks to the Joe Friday facts. And then over the years, as I get comfortable with it, then the class goof off comes back. So if you like the class goof off and miss a little bit, it'll be back. If you don't, enjoy the break.
It is the Rookie Scouting Portfolio. It is Matt Waldman. It is Cecil Lammey, the Audible Live. Make sure to check out our YouTube channel, Football Guys TV. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so that you never miss a vid. And also, programming note, if you see our channel and you, of course, subscribe to us on Apple Music or Spotify or what have you, you notice how we're getting new shows. So make sure to stay tuned for our Dynasty newsletter show. Obviously, our Dynasty show last year with Chad and Jordan has been fantastic. More stuff's coming. Don't want to reveal too much, but just make sure that you are subscribed. And again, make sure to hit that like button. It really helps out with the algorithm and putting it out there for other people to see, and support the Rookie Scouting Portfolio. Next week, a conversation about Cade Johnson and why I think he's Miles Morales. And Frank Darby. Oh, we got it. So many wide receivers.
I like me some Frank Darby. I'm glad you mentioned him.
I like
Chad,
Frank Darby,
our buddy Chad Ryder likes Frank Darby too.
Good. Right? That's good. Because the kid can play. So he is Matt Waldman. Follow him on Twitter at Matt Waldman. I am Cecil Lammey saying thanks for watching, everybody. As always, stay tuned and stay frosty.